Good morning, everybody. It's doing too much on this wonderful morning filled with overcast and precipitation throughout the afternoon, early morning, late morning, all day. It's going to be filled with happy smiles from somebody. Dude, how are you doing this morning?
I'm all right.
All right. I want to apologize on the air for making my wife feel like this because I know I did it. But I want to let her know that I love her because I do that. I wake up trying to be better every day. I really do. But I wanted to talk about something that she put me up on a few weeks ago. It was like this survey test of implicit biases. I want her to give you kind of an idea of what it is because I wasn't exactly for sure. Well, I'm not even gonna lie. I know what bias was. I didn't know what implicit was, and then she told me explicit, so she broke it down. But I want to give you some results that I had, but I want to give her the time to break this down so you can see the type of areas we are trying to work on to get better. Young lady, if you're up to it, would you please break down the implicit and the explicit bias?
Okay.
Come on, I'm sorry, dude. I love you. It just seemed like I beat you up. Look, she has no black eyes. She has no marks on her arm. I did not touch her.
I already told y'all he got this mouth on him.
I did not raise my voice.
Annoys me sometimes.
Look, I just want to be her inspiration. I love her that much, and I just don't know how to.
I'm just doing my deep breathing here.
I know, and I'm really trying to learn the language for her to receive it because it's apparent that I'm not really good at this, and I'm not putting enough systems in place to prevent this from happening. Like, she knows it's coming from a good place, but she still feels this way, and it bothers the out of me. And I just want y'all to know, the point of these episodes that you guys are hearing is to show our growth because we're actually trying to improve, and we're going to use any and everything possible to do that. And my wife is feeling disgruntled because of the way that I deliver the message. And I'm sorry again. And I know sorry means you're not going to do it again, but I am working diligently to prevent this. Do you believe me?
Yeah.
Y'all should see her face. I don't know if she believes me. I hope y'all believe me.
Anyway, so okay. I attended this conference this week, and it had the focus was on health equity, and the keynote speaker spoke on implicit bias. So we all have biases like our preferences, things we're against, things that we're for. Well, we also have explicit biases and implicit biases. So it's the things that we favor or we're against that we know, we're conscious of. Those are explicit, and we would speak it. Like, I don't like peas in anything. I don't like to eat broccoli with cheese on it. I'm in favor of broccoli, but not with cheese on it. I'll explicitly state that I'm conscious of it. If I see it on the table, I'm not going to eat it. So your implicit biases are those things that you're not conscious of. Oh my God, it's so loud.
It's all right. Hey, look, that's the king's tongue. That's the king's tongue. Please forgive me. The king's tongue.
He is so loud. Anyway, so implicit bias is like what you're not aware of. So some people may have, and it could be a strong preference towards something or a strong association with being against something else, whatever the case may be. So As an example, we were talking about doctors, and because it was a health equity, conference, and so we're talking about doctors and how the doctors, there's an 11-second rule. There are two 11-second rules I'll talk about, but one of them is that when a doctor is in a room with a person of color, they will only allow 11 seconds to go by for that person to explain their problem before they cut them off and start to create a treatment plan for them and push them out of the office. Versus allowing more time for someone who is not a person of color to kind of explain their concerns. And so I thought that was really interesting to do that. However, the implicit biases, what they are not paying attention to is that they do not feel like there's any need for additional explanation. And if they do, they're going to cut them off in order to get the specific information they want. Whereas if it were a person who were white, they're more likely to be allowed to express their concerns, how they feel, how they would prefer to express their concerns for a longer period of time. That was that. So the bias is for in more of favor of white people. You would allow them more time versus black people. Okay. And so then we're talking about the microaggressions that are associated with it. So microaggressions, we've all heard about those things. But the speaker talked about one where she works for a very big health system. And she has been going to this doctor's office for many, many years. And the office staff knows her. Well, there's a new office staff person, and when they checked her in, she gave the insurance card, and the person said, "Oh, is this such and such Medicare?" Right? And the speaker looked at her, and she was like, "Why do you feel like no?" She was like, "No, this is such and such insurance under my employer." And so she said she was really put off by that, obviously, because, okay, so a black woman comes in here and all of a sudden my insurance has to be hooked to Medicaid. That's what it was, Medicaid. Was it such and such Medicaid? And she said after that assumption and that bias that person had placed on her in that moment, it created, it rewired her to now the point where she comes to her doctor's office and she always has her work badge on her jacket or somewhere so that anyone who sees it can recognize her as someone not to look at as a Medicaid, not to just assume that she's a Medicaid patient. Not that there's anything wrong with Medicaid. There are some people who are eligible who are not. Look, this is me getting on my soapbox. There are some people who are eligible that are not utilizing it. But at the same time, let me get back. She just felt like, so you were trying to say that just because I'm black, then I must be on Medicaid, and that's not the case. And so then it automatically created this behavior for her to always be cognizant that she has her badge on when she goes into this office. So what this is bringing me to is I have been talking to him a lot about this assessment. It's a Harvard assessment. We'll put the website on in the description. It's out of Harvard, and it's an implicit bias test, and it has a lot of different tests you can take. You could take on religion, skin tone, race, gender, sexuality. What are some of the ones you took?
I took age, race, religion, and body type.
Yeah, and body type. Yep. So, what I told him to do is I said, there are some things we already know we're biased about, or we feel like we already know. Some preferences we already know, but there are some that we really feel like we don't have any biases. And I was like, so I want you to try some of the assessments based on what you feel like. I don't have a bias toward young or old people, or, someone who is Christian versus Muslim, whatever the case may be. I want you to try some of those. So he took 4 of them. And I'm telling you, from when I took it, this is my problem with it. I took it the first time, and then I read all of the information about I read what my response was, my association, and then I read how they did the test. How did they determine that this was the bias that I had? Because I wanted to know, how do you figure that out from what I just did, this activity? Once you read that, it makes it so much harder to take the next assessment. And so I tried to take another assessment on skin tone. I started off with Christian Muslim. And I started out that way because I've grown up Christian. And I also know that Christianity has been manipulated and used in negative ways. And it's been used as the basis for people hurting other people as well. And so I have conflicting feelings. Like, I know how good it can make you feel, but I also know that people can use it for bad. Now, the most recent 4 years of my life, a few years ago, I went to live in a Middle Eastern country where I was like immersed in a lot of Muslim culture, especially when I started working in the schools. So it really opened my eyes to that religion and having an understanding of that religion and the people there. And so I took that test, and my results made sense to me. They did. And so I was like, okay, this is legit. So then the next one I wanted to do was skin tone. I also wanted to do, sexuality and gender. But you know what? I started skin tone, and when I started the process, because I knew how they were doing it, I felt like it created even more like anxiety around, okay, like make sure I'm like, what am I? It makes me think more, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be able to go in, completely unknowing of how they're doing it, so that I could give responses. I could feel more comfortable in my responses. I feel like you think that now you want to be, I don't want to be biased. I want to be as balanced as possible. So let me do it like that. I didn't want to do that. So with him, I was like, look, I'm going to tell you what your results are, but I'm not going to tell you how they determined it. And I want you to take as many as you want to take. And then we can talk about it. So do you want to talk about?
Yeah, for sure. I'm mad because the religion one I ended up sending without actually being able to read the results, because I didn't know how you did it because you had left the room. So I didn't know that. I'm going to do that again. But I want you guys to know, I wanted to do this because I am working on becoming an effective communicator. And in order to do that effectively, you have to know your own personal biases that you may not recognize. And I pride myself on trying to be balanced, trying to see the better picture of things. But regardless of my views, like the environment, influence, and all of that plays a significant role, especially if you don't even know that it's a part of your life. So like I said earlier, I took religion, race, age, and body type. So religion I can't really speak on. I'm gonna have to do it again. But I know she told you guys that in her head that, she's trying to like not do this and it's causes an anxiety. But I believe because you have to do it within a time sequence, or at least that they make you believe that way. So I feel like if you take more time, it's going to hurt you. So they'll know that you're doing it. So whatever reading they'll come, I think it'll give a different. So I'm going to recommend her doing it again, and I want to see these results. But I wanted to tell y'all my results. So the first one I did, okay, I got an idea of how to do it. I didn't really get it. Do you remember What the religion?
You did
What it said?
thin, fat, old, young, gender, and race. You didn't do religion.
Oh, okay.
I did religion.
Oh, I did gender?
You did gender. You remember family, male, female, career? You remember that one?
Yeah. Oh, okay,
that was
okay,
gender
okay.
roles. Yeah.
All right, so that's what I did. I stand corrected. So now I feel more confident going in religion. But I want you guys to know this. After I did it the first time, I was I had an idea. And when I did it again, this is what's going on in my head as I'm doing it. I think this is race. Mm-hmm. And while I'm doing it, I'm being bothered in my head. I'm answering these things, but I'm still thinking. And what I'm thinking is like my influence, my foundational influence. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. And Louisville, Kentucky is white. I never realized how many white people was in Louisville, Kentucky until I went back as an adult. Because in my eyes, I thought it was a lot of black people. But it is a lot of white people. So while I'm doing this, I feel like I'm going to favor white people. This is no lie. I'm thinking this in my head. Like, I grew up around white people, and I remember as a middle school kid believing, like, I remember somebody was like, in where I grew up, it was a stereotype of black people being from downtown. And it was like a different type of black people. And somebody was like, John, you from downtown? I'm like, nah, I ain't from downtown. Like, that was embarrassing to do. You know what I'm saying? I'm just telling you my thoughts as a middle school kid. So while I'm doing this test, I'm thinking like my foundation, I had white friends, and I had views of people that looked like me that wasn't so positive. Mm-hmm. So I'm even telling you while I'm doing it. Like, remember, I was like,
yeah, he like slowing down and was like, it's like
I feel like
you can feel it, but and we're not being vague about how the test works to be frustrating. I really, really like, and I think you would feel the same way, John, want people to do this test. Like, we intend on doing it with our kids because we really want them to be more aware. But so he's going through it and he could feel it in his shondo. And in the end,
for real.
In the end, okay, so what did it say? Did it say
I highly favor white people, European people?
I don't think it was highly. I feel like it
was slightly favored. Yeah, slightly favored.
Slightly favored white to black.
Yeah.
And
I don't even I haven't worked with European descent like on a day-to-day basis in a very long, like
predominantly, you mean?
Yeah, predominantly since what? University, high school.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
2006.
Yeah. But it's there are two things I want to ask you about that. So,
and they weren't even predominantly white.
The first thing I want to ask you about that is I did not take the white versus black. So you took the white versus black, and how did that make you feel to know that in all of your trying to learn, and we're constantly trying to unlearn the things that, because we're constantly like vomited on with these ideas about what's best, what is the better race, even when we're not paying attention. And so you trying to better yourself, trying to really coming home and saying, I'm coming home for my community, I'm coming to do this, do that. How did you feel when it was like you could feel it while you were taking the test, but in the end when it said you favored white over black, did it make you feel any kind of way? Well,
just listening to you, I definitely felt a certain type of way because I was wondering if I was going to be able to discuss this with people on a larger scale because people will view me in a certain type of way. I'm comfortable within my skin to know that, like, I know my heart. I don't want anything bad to happen to anybody. Mm-hmm. But I'll say this. Like, I grew up with a lot of white people, right? Mm-hmm. So all of these white people weren't bad.
Right.
I didn't grow up with as many black people, but the narration of black people was bad. Mm-hmm. So in my head, as a kid, mm-hmm. as I grow up, I know that all white people aren't bad. But as I get closer and closer to who I am, and I'm like, the color is a distraction because there's majority white people. All of them aren't bad. But if you look at the numbers, you wouldn't say that all white people bad because they control the narration. So if black people look like they're bad, in my head as a kid, I'm like, I'm not going to be those type of black people. So even now, like you said, like, how did I feel? I felt insecure. I felt like how could this possibly be? But with my rationale, I made it make sense to me because I know how I feel about people in general. But I only want, at this point in my life, to help black people get everything that they deserve because I feel like, in comparison, the modern day Hebrews, like the people that went through so much. So I want to show them how to do well. So seeing those results is like, am I being true to myself? So it was even talking to you when I told you, I was like, oh my God, I hate these results. It was eating me. Yeah. And I'm like, I have a witness to what I am actually feeling.
Yeah. That was rough. Well, so she was talking about how you can work toward, kind of minimizing those biases. The best part about going through the different assessments and even learning about implicit and explicit bias is that once you know you have that bias, then you can actively work to lessen it. So she was saying, for doctors, it might be pausing. And she said, well, everybody, it's a pause. Because, just to get an idea of how fast your brain works, there's a 7-11 rule. And the 7-11 rule is in the first seconds of coming in contact with someone, you have already made 11 assumptions about them based on your history and your implicit biases. So you will see them, you'll make 11 assumptions, and it allows your brain to filter out. It's like, I've already seen this stuff before, so I'm just going to assume that this is what this person is, and then I'm going to focus on other things. Like, every second we can only focus on 40 pieces of information every second, but we are being like bombarded with millions of different messages and colors and shapes and things for our brains to process around us. So your brain is like, look, I'm gonna do I'm a filter out the information, the things around me that I've seen before, and I'm gonna use my past, my understanding, and my implicit by my unconscious is filtering all that stuff out, so that you can focus on the things, the 40 things that are being pressured on you that you can't immediately filter out, that new information. And so we practiced this yesterday. We were on a walk with the dog, so we come across two couples. So the first couple we come across, and as soon as we passed them, I had just finished telling John about 7-11, and as soon as I passed him, he was like, did you get 11 assumptions? I was like, yeah. And so we started running it down. And then there was another couple that came, and I was like, I got 11 assumptions again. And you realize, once you realize you're doing it, then you could be like, okay, I don't even really know if that's true. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if this is true. And so what you have to start doing is, once you're aware of those biases that you have, then you pause. So you have to pause and say, okay, so if this were someone else, what would I have done? What would I have thought? Or can I really say that? In the sense of, because it was a health equity seminar, they were talking about, for a provider would stop and say, okay, just if it's a black patient, if it's someone who speaks another language and they need a translator, or someone is Medicaid, because doctors will provide different treatments based on whether or not they feel that you will do what you're supposed to do. They have this idea that people with lower income, Medicaid patients, foreign-born people are not going to follow through with treatments. So they won't give them the big whole shebang. But they are more likely to push and contact your health insurance in order to get them to okay a different type of treatment
to
if
get
you're
their money.
white. Yeah, but they'll do the advocating
For sure.
for white people to go the extra mile in healthcare and in treatments because they feel like these people will follow through. They probably have the money, or I know a program that can help them. They're more likely to help and to like give them. No doctor is really giving the full holistic type of treatment, but they're more likely to advocate further and look at more options for someone who is white than someone who is not, because there are implicit biases on whether or not they can afford the treatment. They'll follow through. They'll understand the instructions in order to be able to complete it correctly, all of those things. So for a provider, knowing those biases, then you have to stop and say, okay, if it were anyone else, what would I do? Looking at this prognosis, what would I do?
Got you.
And then it helps you to take out those things and say, okay, if you know you have a strong association or favor toward white people, what would I do if this was a white woman? Judges, what would I do if this were a white man or a white woman that were facing these same charges? What would I do if if you're a police officer? What would I do if this were? So if you know you have the bias, then you can actively work toward minimizing them. But the problem is, number one, knowing you have it.
Yeah.
And
accepting it.
And accepting that. Yeah, accepting that. And, for some people, their racism, they know they have that bias. So I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the ones that have received messaging all through their life about who other people are outside of their group.
Yeah.
And then making decisions based on that. And so I thought that was really interesting to sit there and think about, okay, when we really were sitting there, I do make assumptions immediately when I see people. And there are things that I do to filter out information that I don't really think about, but now I think about it.
I got the question I was going to say earlier. Do they treat white people different with Medicaid?
I don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't know because I don't deal directly with Medicaid.
So what do you think? Like when you say that, like I totally get the idea of treating black people with Medicaid differently from somebody who has a legit insurance through a company insurance or whatnot. Not saying legit,
right?
But an insurance through another company. So white people with Medicaid, the person, they have their biases also.
Yeah.
But they're more likely to do more.
Well, you have to think about the layering of biases. So if you have a white person with Medicaid and a black person with Medicaid, yes, they both have Medicaid. You may feel like there's going to be limitations on what you can do with them or their insurance or whatever the case may be. But will you make extra strides to find more creative means of
That's
doing
what I'm
it
asking.
So if your bias is just around income, then I would understand like you're not going to make a difference in your choice. But if you have the layered bias in regards to race, then I would assume. But I don't have anything to say to confirm or deny that.
Got you.
But one of the things I thought was really interesting. So this conference is full of doctors, nurses, advocates, health advocates, community health workers, all of this other stuff, right? So one of the polling questions she asked was, what did she say? She said, I am in the helping profession, and so I can't have biases, right? I can't have implicit biases against others. So out of that room of over 100 people, 12% of them agreed. If you're in the helping profession and your goal is to help others, you aren't someone who holds implicit biases. And a lot of people think that implicit bias is strictly racial. It's not. Like we talked about, it could be, do you prefer thin people over people who are overweight? Do you prefer, in regards to gender, do you think that gender roles, do you feel like men are more career oriented and women are more family oriented, how those roles should play out? So implicit bias is not to say in our conversation I'm talking about race, but implicit bias is everything.
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback off the family thing, because those of you that know me, my father raised me for the most part, you know what I'm saying? And I would like to believe that I've been trying to do my part as far as the nurturing aspect that women give. And I took this test, and that was definitely overwhelmingly saying that I view women more family oriented and men more professional career. And that is with me being raised completely different from your typical household.
But I believe that you felt that way because you felt there was definitely a void left by your mom.
True.
When your mom wasn't there, you saw your family deteriorate in different ways. And so even though your dad was your primary caregiver, I was going to say provider. Even though he was your primary caregiver, you could definitely see that there was misses.
Oh, yeah.
By your mom not being there. And so I could understand you saying she's needed.
Well,
she was needed.
I'm saying, yeah. But I'm saying, like, with me before the test, like me thinking, trying to believe that I have changed my mindset, that I have convinced myself.
Oh, I thought that you were going to be a little bit more toward being less biased in that area. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. It was like, wow, like even if you think you're influenced and you would believe something else, that it may not be as strong as you think.
And that's why y'all should take this. Y'all should go and take the assessments. You should take the assessments just because I feel like the more people that do and the more aware you are, the better we'll be overall as a population and society or what have you. However, I feel like it's so eye-opening to be like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know that I preferred that over that. Like, I didn't know that. And then when it tells you you're strong or moderately or slightly in favor of something over another, it really opens your eyes to you. Now, when I am out and I see people, I'm so aware that I'm already making assumptions about them. And now I'm thinking about the words I use or the things I might say to my kids that might not even be, I'm not trying to give them those small messages we got growing up. So I'm trying to figure it out. But I think that it's a great activity to do and discuss. And I also think that it's a great thing to do with the kids. And
that's what I'm really excited
I'm excited about
doing.
that one.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to also tell you guys, I favor thinner people than people that's overweight. And I favor, what was it?
Young to old.
Yeah, young to old people. So I had kind of like put it all together. So I prefer I've been programmed to believe that a traditional household should have a man that's focused on his career with a woman providing the family aspect, a young European looking.
Oh my God. You like a young European woman?
Well, favor as far, I guess to me, it's not that I
ain't married that, y'all.
I didn't. No, listen. I think when I say that, I'm talking about I maybe feel like I'm the safest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't want to say, when I say the safest, I mean like the young European look, white people.
I don't know if you can loop all those things together.
Well, I know this is what I do in my head, trying to figure out like, okay, why would I feel that way so I can unlayer myself.
Okay.
Yeah, like,
cuz I mean like, okay. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, but I just it's affected by my foundation and how I
understand. Yeah, definitely.
like I really check this out. I had I had real white friends growing up. And as I got to high school, I was like I said, and I wanted to say something. Like, I was a bully to a degree, and I wanted to apologize because the other day I was fairly popular and I got along with everybody. I did get along with mostly everybody, but I was a bully in some instances, and I was just a troubled kid trying to figure it out. And I was so insecure that, I just jumped on people before. And when I say jump on them, it wasn't physically jumping on them. It was just verbal fisticuffs. I'm ready to give them the business so everybody wouldn't focus on me.
There it is.
Yeah.
Because I was like, hey, that's the best way to draw attention away from yourself.
For sure. And I didn't realize people wasn't even looking for me anyway. You know what I'm saying?
We've had this discussion before.
Yeah. So
ain't nobody coming for you.
So I'm just saying, like, with all of the programming that I've gotten, I'm trying to fix it now because I feel like if I can fix the programming for me, my family will get better. So I was talking to somebody the other day. I was like, I would like to believe that I'm the Phil Jackson of my family, but I can't be the Phil Jackson of my family because my wife is an intricate part of this. It is a 2-parent team by far, and we have so much help on the outside, even on the inside, of our family. And I just feel like we need to do a better job at communicating with each other so that we can get the help and we can communicate with each other effectively so the message won't be lost. Because that's the reason why biases are the way they are, because you have been affected or you've had some experience to cause you to create those biases.
Or your parents have placed their own experiences on you. Or the TV has, or your music has.
It's coming from somewhere, not your own.
Some
thoughts.
is inside, and sometimes it's out. But I mean, like I said, yeah, I feel like there are biases that people have against people they've never had personal contact with. So some of it has to come from somewhere else.
Oh no! I'm saying I don't think it comes from inside. I think innately we would like to believe people are like.
No, I think that even your implicit bias, I definitely believe it comes inside too. Like, if I've met 2 dogs and both dogs bit me, then now I have this bias against dogs, and not all dogs are like that. But it's based on my experience.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I feel like your biases are clumped up collections of all of the messages you've received inside and out. And then it helps you to say, okay, I don't have to do any more work to process this type of person. I've already had enough experiences where my brain already puts them in a category. So I don't have to process who you are.
And we shouldn't do that. We should
everybody
approach everything as a new experience.
And I did not do the white versus black, but I may do it. I'm really interested to see what my response is. I am one of the people who, like, I tell my kids, I give everybody an opportunity to prove themselves individually of who they are and their intentions toward me, my people, my family, all that other. But once you've proven yourself, like I've met you, talked to you, and interacted with you, you either are a part of you maintain as an individual and all of your great characteristics. But if you show me that you're just like that clumped up group that I keep to the side, then you get clumped up in there and that's it. Like, everybody gets the opportunity to prove themselves to not be a part of that group.
You don't think that everybody learns at different periods of time?
I do. But, safety wise,
Okay,
it's safer for me to, I interact with you openly initially. And if you prove yourself to possibly be a safety risk for me, you go into the unsafe group.
Gotcha.
And then I'm going to treat you like I'm going to keep you at a 10-foot distance from then on. If I feel safe with you and I feel like you're not someone that fits the description, then I allow you to maintain yourself as an individual.
Do you think that you give everybody the same courtesy?
Yeah, because I want it for us. I honestly do. I joke around a lot, but there be truth in the joke though. But my biggest concern is that we all have these stereotypes of everyone. And when we meet people, they become the stereotype unless they can prove themselves. It's like being guilty until proven innocent. And we're supposed to do the innocent until you make me feel that I'm unsafe with you. I want to feel like I'm safe with you. Mm-hmm. And so I feel the same way about Black people. I feel like we are some of the most loving and accepting people. We got our issues, y'all. Sexuality. We gonna talk about it at some point, but we overall we really will be communal with people. We'll bring you into our crew. We'll be fun with you and all the other stuff. But you prove yourself to be unsafe, then now we got the guard dogs out. I feel like the world gives us the opposite. They see the stereotype and you got to prove yourself to be different. Now I got to tell you how I'm different from the stereotype for you to say, oh, Kanika's a good person though.
You know, I used to feel that way before. I'm trying to think. That's very interesting. That's interesting that you said that, because I remember where there was a part of me that felt like I had to be accepted. I don't know. It's crazy. But I think everybody goes through that to somebody. They want to be accepted by somebody. And I think most of the time me personally, it was to get to a level where I am at a place of like I can be viewed the same without judgment. And I don't think that's ever going to happen in our lifetime. But I think that's what I've been striving for. I've been looking, where is that place where people can say, you know, he's just a good guy. He messed up, but, you know, he figured it out or whatnot, opposed to like he's Black, he's done bad things, like anything being held against me. Like, do you think I did that to get here? I did that because it was a part of some stupidity, survival, anything. You know, it wasn't to do bad. Like when I say bad, I'm talking about to hurt anybody. It was literally stupidity or survival.
I got you. I think that makes me think about when they stereotype like the angry Black woman or the angry Black man instead of like the Black man in the moment that's angry because of what's going on around him, or the Black woman that's angry because of what's going on around her. Like in a previous conversation, we were talking about like, okay, so if you do something to me and I start going off and I'm yelling and I'm screaming because it was a true violation, and they'd be like, it's another angry Black woman.
I understand now, I think.
Okay. So my thing is like, I feel like you're taking, when you use that stereotype and you say it's another angry Black woman, it's like making it where it's my fault and it's all in my head and that's just who I am, rather than saying I'm a Black woman who's angry because of what's been done to me. And usually the person who brushes a woman off and says, oh, she's just another angry Black woman, it's because they did something to them, and it takes away their responsibility for making her feel that way.
I'll tell you this. So this is what made me think of like, okay, I've been in this position before. So have you ever been in a conversation where somebody got really upset about something and you was like, wow, it is not that serious?
Yeah.
And I think that typically falls under the category where if somebody's like, oh, it's another, like, dude, you are really tripping over this. Like, I don't know why you're this mad. So in my mind, that's what they're saying. Like, dude, if you were not so angry, you would realize that this issue would not require all of this. I'm going to kick your mother. You know what I'm saying? So maybe the experience of others.
But I feel like it's a cascading, like, you have a million things that are piling up on top of you, and then somebody says some stuff that's really out of pocket, And then,
so that kind of means that you were already angry before.
I mean, it was building, but I mean, what did you do to contribute?
You're absolutely right, but was that their intent? To send you over the edge?
I don't think it's anybody's intent, but I also think that, well, in most cases, I don't think so. But I think that you have to sit there and be like, okay, just a minute ago, she was fine. But now she's going, what did I do? But rather than to think of what could I have done that triggered something, it doesn't have to be the whole basis and foundation of why I'm angry. What could I have done to trigger this response? But usually it's like, there's another angry black woman. Another example, in our relationships, when a man is with a woman and she just is sweet and loving and awesome and amazing, and by the time y'all done, he's like, just acting like them angry black women. But she was sweet when you met her. So
what did you do to make her?
Yeah. Like, so when you chop it off and say, oh, I stopped talking to her, she one of them angry black women, them single women, they be angry and blah, blah, blah. But do the guys ever say to themselves, when I met her, she was sweet. Like, what did I do to
Of course not.
Oh, okay.
We don't think that far.
And so we just, and then
just put the blame on you.
Yeah, and then it becomes,
you're the reason why we didn't make it.
Yeah, and then it becomes, so wait, y'all continue to pile that message out there, and then other people are like, that's why I don't date black women.
Now I want you to know that all the black men that I know that they're the reason. They just make up
the truth.
No, I'm saying most of the black men, they know that they have their own insecurities on why the relationship didn't work. It just didn't come out during the moment because they may not have known, but most of them know it's due to insecurities.
Okay, but can we agree that
that's a horrible response to give to a woman because it didn't work?
Yeah. And putting that message out there that's why, or that's who she is now, as if that's who she always was. It compounds like this message on top of black women that we just really don't deserve, because we will go down in flames for black men.
We got to do better. You know what? So when you say
half the time we are going down in flames because we were happy, and then we're all, now we angry supposedly, and that's messed up.
Well, there's so much programming for everybody, okay? So I just want you to know, like, just because, like, you think we're supposed to know better does not mean that we actually understand that we're supposed to know better. So, like I said, there are things that I've said to you in my mind, I thought that was the correct thing until I get more information and I can say, okay, I didn't have enough information to have that opinion. My apologies. But if we don't have these conversations, we're just going to have our own biases.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Speaking of black women just now and biases, how do you have a mother and a grandmother and women who raise you up, right? But then you grow up and the world is even more powerful than the people who raised you. Like, the world's influenced where men will say that other women are better. I wonder about that.
Well, I don't understand what you mean.
Okay, so, in the instances where there are black men who were raised by their mothers, have sisters, maybe their grandmother, you got all these black women who literally raised you up and guided you out the door, right? And then they will make the statement that black women are this, black women are that, and that's why they don't date them.
I don't know anybody who said that. That's been raised like that. So that's weird.
Yeah. But I feel like there are, I've seen
I'm
them,
sure it is. I'm
them
just saying,
interviewed.
I don't
know them. I don't know them personally, but I've always been curious about how the world's messaging is stronger in shaping those implicit biases than even the person who cared for you and raised you.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that you received a message that there's a large population of those men out there. I
don't think it's a large population.
But I'm saying, so why would we talk about that type of messaging to create a bias to me.
I just think that that's interesting. Like the world has a stronger impact than the ones who like nursed you up.
Because
you know what I'm saying?
that means that their foundation was, they didn't do a good job at raising. But again, if you don't have a man to tell you how to treat a woman, how can you appreciate what raised you? Like women, in order to impact a man in a situation that you just named, would have to be on some really hands-on, engaging type stuff. Because I don't know too many women that have a support group that can show a young man how to become a man. It's very difficult. There's men that's being raised by men and don't even know how to be a man.
That's true. Some of your comments just make me reflect on a very wise philosopher the name Tupac comes across.
What did you say?
Keep your head up. His lyrics on that house. It's like how you get your name from the woman, right? Man, yeah. That was just a thought and a question that I wanted to bounce off of you. Well, really, it was just a thought. It wasn't anything to.
Well, I tell you this. The reason why I kind of like acted like that because it's offensive to me. Like I hate. No. I would hate for that to be like
the story.
Gosh, that hurt. So that's what. Like so.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's the majority. I was just wondering about that little group. Like, why? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I encourage everybody to go click on the link to the website. Go try some of the assessments. Let us know in the comments, like, did you know that you were this biased on this side or that side? Like, did it tell you something new? Did it teach you something? Go out today. And when you see somebody new, figure out what your first 11 assumptions are. Like, try it out.
Yeah, I think the people who watch this podcast will probably try it out because this podcast is about helping not only yourself, the relationship, the people around you, but just looking for ways to get better. And I think that survey will give you a great depiction of a possibility of who you could be. Not saying it's right, but understand it's a possibility of who you could be, and you should be exposed of who you could be.
Mm-hmm. So, and if we come across anything else, I'm gonna share it
for sure. I want to thank everybody for listening. It's been a wonderful morning with you guys, and I want you to be great on purpose. Anything you want to say, do?
Work on your biases.
For sure. And your diet. Attack the day with relentless tenacity and bend all opportunities to your will.
Boom.